No mai, haere mai ki Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod, brought to you by Ashley and Martin Medical Hair Centres. It's been a big week of footy. We have a Lions team named and it's a doozy. If Australia beat that team, it's a big achievement. It's a huge achievement. It includes young English star Henry Pollock, one of the world's rising stars, and that got us to thinking, who is the world's best young talent, from Feinberg and Gomazulu to Zatiti? We'll have a look, we'll break it down. We'll look at the Ashley and Martin turning point. That Chiefs' second half could be season defining. Once again, D-Mac, Tupaea and Stevenson have played a massive part, and it leaves them in the best position to be top of the table. There's the battle for the sixth spot as well, hotly contested. Moana Pacifica versus the Blues will be massive this weekend. Who will own Auckland City? We'll look into the Black Ferns' rusty start against Australia before their game against Canada. And once again, we'll give away a rugby-ready training package courtesy of All Blacks trainer Nick Gill and his team. Stick around for the keyword later in the show to enter yourself, a family member or a friend, and of course, your emails, your comments, the tipping comp, and a bunch of rugby geek chat. Speaking of which, possibly the world's biggest rugby geek right here next to me, James Parsons. Good to have you as always.
Oh, great to be here, Ross. Great to be here. And we're back. We're back. The Blues are back.
The Blues are back.
They're back, baby. You know that hangover? Yeah. Like, we are back. That's how I feel after that result in Fiji.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this week as well.
Oh, please.
It's a hell of a battle for the weekend. And speaking of people going into playoff rugby, possibly, well, Bryn Hall this weekend, Brinner, you're heading into it, mate. It's your team, Kubota, versus the Sun Goliath in a quarterfinal. You guys feeling pretty good?
Yeah, mate. We're excited. I think we kind of knew that we're going to be in the quarterfinal stage a couple of weeks ago, but it was whether we're going to have the week off or not. But you were playing Suntory, who we had a draw with them early part of the year, and then we kind of got the result against them in the second time round. But no, we're really excited, and yeah, we play on Sunday, so hopefully this is the back in the year. This is where you want to be, and I think we're ready, and we're looking forward to, I guess, what happens on Sunday. So yeah, it's going to be a good time, and looking forward to the week ahead.
Come on, mate. You're going to cancel 4 of those golf rounds you had booked for that week off.
Well, my dad's actually here as well. So my dad's come over here, and look, if the week did come off, we would have been able to play a little bit. But in saying that, preparation-wise, Jip, I think we'll probably touch on it at the back end of the year sometime in this podcast, that do you want to play? Do you want to have a bye week off going into these final series? And I think for myself and the group, for us being able to play week to week is actually a good way to go into a final stage. So now we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, and you've got Sam Cane and Cheslin Colby on the opposition. So there's some big names in that Sun Goliath team.
Yeah, and they play in an expensive game. They pride themselves on playing the ball quick and I guess playing that up tempo. And like you said, Cheslin Colby plays really well over here. Sam Cane's really big for them. Sean McMahon has been playing over here for a while, and he's really a big talisman for them. So it's going to be a great battle, and they play a lot of ball and players. So I guess if you're a fan, it's going to be a great game, and hopefully the weather plays its part, because we've had some pretty big ball and play with playing them in the past.
Don't worry, mate. You got Malcolm Marks. You're fine.
You'll be all right. Right, let's get on to Super Rugby very quickly before we get on to everything else. The Ashley and Martin Medical Hair Centres turning point. Let's start with the Chiefs. They've gone to the top of the table after going down to Christchurch and just doing a second half job on the Crusaders. What a turning point.
Oh, massive. I mean, I think, we're obviously big fans of Sean Stevenson. I think he played a crucial role. He did the 50-22, which they, made the most of, got the points. But then his rush defence to close on Havili, which forced the error for Leroy Carter to go the distance. That's a big play, because Havili's the sort of person that can get that ball away to free up the outside or get the kick away as he was trying to do. But they committed to that defensive structure, and it paid dividends, and you almost felt like the momentum was just all with the Chiefs, but a little bit of a confidence ding for the Crusaders, and they just couldn't sort of fight their way back.
Brenner, what did you see change in that second half?
They just squeezed the Crusaders. I think Damien McKenzie and Sean Stevenson's kicking game, in terms of being able to kick long and have contestables and have that kind of balance. Like in the first half, they kicked, for 253 metres. In the second half, 630 with 17 kicks. So I think the way that they were able to kick down the field, being able to get 50-22s, put the ball in behind them, and I guess the Crusaders weren't able to get out of their half through that. And look, I think in the first half they had 10 unforced errors, and they weren't efficient with the ball that they did have. They made a lot of mistakes. They had possession, they had territory, but the Crusaders with 4 entries into the 22 scored 3 times, had very limited ball, and were operating at a high percentage with their tackle percentage. They were able to be in front, but I think the 2 tries just after halftime, touched on the 2 points with Shaun Stevenson, and I think their kicking game, the way Damien, the way Shaun, even Cortez at Atima with his contestables, they controlled the game and squeezed the Crusaders. And then I think, look, the way they finished their game, Wallace at TT's try, I think that was the nail in the coffin. I think more so that'd be a pleasing thing for Clayton McMillan. In that moment in the game, they were able to, I guess, go through them and go into 18th phase and I guess just brutally, physically dominate them in the later passages of that game. So, yeah, that second half, it was a clinic. And I think if you're the Crusaders, you'll be having a hard look at yourself in terms of what that 40 minutes looked like, because it was an absolute clinic from how the Chiefs were able to execute in that second half and won the game.
You can't underestimate their decisions to take the 3 points. So, because I think the 2 tries were a bang, bang, and you sort of can feel that anxiety, but then to get another 6 points, and that's where errors start to come, because you start forcing, you start chasing, and that scoreboard pressure. So I think the way they made their decisions in that second half, whether it was their kicking game or what they did from penalties, was massive. But I think the Crusaders will look at it, and 12 penalties for them is relatively high for this season. They haven't given that many penalties away. When you look at the Chiefs, they really tightened things. They only had 6 for the whole 80 and barely any in that second half. So you got to commend the captaincy and I suppose the coaching group of what they said at that half time. But I felt going for that scoreboard pressure and actually kicking those goals were just as important as those 2 tries in terms of forcing the Crusaders into that desperation mode and trying to play from everywhere.
Now, you mentioned David Havili. Brenna, Tupaea at 12 is looking outstanding, isn't he? Like, he was really beating on the door for the All Blacks.
Definitely. I think it's a great point, Ross. Look, I think Quin has gone under the radar a little bit, but I think his performances, I think for the duration of the year, he's having his best year, I believe. His collision area, his breakdown turnovers. Look, you get a guy that's over the ball. We've talked around Tupaea Nawai early in there with how good he is around the breakdown. I think arguably he'd be the second best midfielder to be able to get breakdown turnovers, which I think has been massive for the Chiefs defensively. And then I think the way that he played on the weekend, he was up for it, was able to put skill set under pressure, I think, even in terms with Davey a couple of times. But look, I think for a guy that's knocking on the door, I think we're pretty blessed. And I guess in that 12 position, we've touched a lot around the 13, around with Rico and Billy and even Sullivan and the guys that have played in that position. But we've got Geordie Barrett, David O'Villier that's been in that group, but Quin Tupaea definitely is in that. Is in the reckoning with his performance on the weekend and through the duration of the year with things that I think he does really well for the Chiefs this year.
And I think he's completely shown he's a triple threat, Bryn. Like, I think his kicking game has come on leaps and bounds. Like, one thing David Havili's always had is that triple threat game, and his kicking is superb. But I think the way the Chiefs have the ability to exit, and they've got the lowest failed exits in the competition, and that's a big stat to win, because you're not giving the opposition that chance. But I spoke about it a few weeks ago, and Quin's a big part of this, is they can kick from anywhere in their back line. And if you shut off one option, the next player, and they know tactically they're on song, and when they kick, they know it's to their game plan. And I think Quin's attacking kicking game has been his biggest growth, because I think the ball carrying, feeding his outsides and setting players up, and his defensive work, it's always been there, and that's why he's been an All Black. And before that injury, he was a solid mainstay in that squad. Adding his kicking, as we saw with the growth and the development of Ma'anonu, I'm not saying he's Ma'anonu, but he's definitely trending in the same direction with that added string to his bow with kicking.
Because the All Blacks love that with Geordie Barrett, don't they? They love the fact that their 12 can do all sorts of roles, bash and crash, kick, etc. Is Quin up to the stage where his kicking game can match that international level of kicking that we expect? Well,
I think it's the best we've seen it. It's a hard question to answer, because you may have to wait till he gets that opportunity to play again. But what it will do is give selectors confidence to put him on the side. I think the other thing as well, when you're trying to get a squad, and if Anton not being there, he can move to 13, and again he has that ability to distribute. He does read the defence really well in terms of when he should be carrying or when to give the ball, but also now seeing that kicking prowess, I don't see why not. But as we know in the international game, that line speed pressure is going to come at a rapid rate.
They usually select four midfielders, and you'd have to think, Geordie's going to be there, and it's whether he's going to be able to go against David Havili. And if they think that on form for form or the skill set that he has is better than Davey, then I guess he comes into the selection process. But look, I think I've been really, really impressed with him. And I think the finals footy, Jip's touched on it a lot. The more you can play against, you can play big matches and playing well against your opposites against the All Blacks or whoever it may be in final situations, you get yourself into that selection criteria. So yeah, I've been very impressed with how he's played this year. And to answer your question, Ross, definitely, he seems like he is a test player, and that's why he was an All Black before his horrific injury that he did have a couple of years ago.
Yeah. It's hard not to imagine that maybe it's that relationship between Havili and the Crusaders coaches that are in the All Blacks. It could be the tough part. They trust him, they know him. That could be the biggest thing that Tupaea has to actually get over.
Yeah, and whether they see value in the fact he can move to 13.
Yeah.
And, you know, because Rico's there, you know, does he cover wing as well? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a bit of mix and match. I'm not necessarily saying they can't pick all five, including Billy Proctor, obviously. But, you know, there will be a toss-up there because, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, Bryn, but I can't remember seeing Davey at 13.
I don't think he has played a lot at 13. And look, he could play 13 at a pinch, but yeah, I think, Quin has the ability to be able to play 12 and 13. He's played more games in that 13 area. And to be honest as well, he's also played wing. Quin's played wing for Waikato, sometimes with the Chiefs, and I can't actually remember if it was in New Zealand 15 as well.
He played All Blacks 15 at wing as well.
Yep, he did. So, you know, utility-wise, when you probably know that Geordie's going to be a 12 and you've got Billy Proctor and Rico probably being that 13 role, and if they do select 4 midfielders, I'm not too sure what their number will be, utility could be a big thing around that selection with Quin as well, being able to play multiple positions.
That Chiefs second half could define the season to some degree for everyone. If they can get past their bye, which they should do, Moana, Pacifica at home and the Landers, I think it is away, that second half and those 4 points could be the thing that takes them all the way in a home final. So what does it look like at the moment? The Crusaders have got the Tars away, the Highlanders at home and the Brumbies away. And the Brumbies have got the Reds at home, a bye, and the Crusaders. So it could still be anyone, but if the Chiefs pick up 2 wins, they get up to 49 points. It's going to be very difficult for the others to get above that without bonus point wins through the last 2 weeks. And considering they're playing each other, the Brumbies and the Crusaders in the final. Yeah,
I mean, you'd have to think the Crusaders would be confident against the Tars and Highlanders to get a bonus point. I think the Chiefs, to make sure they're in control of their own destiny, I think they need at least 1 bonus point out of those 2 games. If they can get that, and if they can get 2, even better, you'd put them in the box seat. But, you know, like, that was a clinic from the Chiefs. I don't think the Crusaders lost that game. I feel like the Chiefs won it, and there's a big difference between losing it and, you know, like, sometimes you just got to tip your cap to your opposition. I think there's still a lot to like about that Crusaders performance. I know they'll be disappointed, but I still think, you know, with 3 games and the ability to get 15 points, and we know when they sharpen that focus, they normally get what they want. There's still a real chance of finishing 1, and I think it is really important finishing first, even though the Chiefs are just showing you can go to Christchurch and win, but I think finals footy creates a different sort of pressure. So it's definitely all on. I still think it's just Chiefs Crusaders. Brumbies would definitely need 10 points and need a few things to go their way.
Britta, you touched on it before about whether the bye works for you. The Crusaders have 3 games. The Chiefs and the Brumbies both have a bye. What is preferable for you in a Super Rugby scenario heading into the playoffs?
Well, for me personally, I like being in rhythm. So, you know, a lot of players do like to be in rhythm and just be able to keep going and going. So I think if you're a younger group and you've got a couple of younger guys that have playing a lot of minutes, I think you just keep going with them because they're young, enthusiastic, and, you know, they recover pretty well. But I think if you've got a little bit of an older group, then having that week off actually does help, depending on what your injury front looks like. If you've had a lot of injuries and you've played a lot of minutes, and sometimes that week off actually comes at a good time. So depending on how you kind of go through the year and situationally how the group's feeling, I guess how old the group is, if it's an experienced or inexperienced group. But for me, preference-wise, I like playing. I like being in rhythm because I think even sometimes a week off, you might feel a little bit different. But even if it is a week off, it is a refresh. I just feel when you do come back, sometimes you just lose those little touches and those little feels that it takes you a little bit in the 20, 30, 40 minutes when you first do play, even in a quarterfinal or even a semi-final as well, whatever it may be. It just does take a little bit, and you've got to, that's what I felt over the years playing finals footy. But Jip, you might feel a bit different, but I think rhythm and being in rhythm helps And I'd rather that, me personally.
Yeah, I do think a big part of it is how banged up your key squad members are. And if we look at the Chiefs, I think it's probably come at a good time, even though probably means they haven't got the control that they'd like, because they've only got the 2 games rather than 3. But Tupaea limped off, Brody McAllister with an HIA, Damian McKenzie's hand. Yes, he played well, but I don't think it hurts not having contact for a week. So I think in terms of that sort of key nucleus of players, it's probably come at the right time. Jacobson's probably another one. He's played a lot of minutes. Simon Parker is sort of probably like the unsung hero. He has got through a mountain of work this season. So being able to rest those key bodies, although they're not injured, they've had a hell of a lot of minutes. And I think it's come at a good time for them.
Pretty excited about the contact area this weekend, Chipper. Moana Pasifika versus the Blues, 2 of the most confrontational contact area teams within this competition, up against each other in that battle most likely for 6th spot. So the Blues and MP at North Harbour Stadium should be a Blues home game. It's not, because it's MP's home ground now. It is a really interesting clash, and it could shape what the next couple of weeks look like.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tension, obviously, within the city, because there's a lot of people, myself included, obviously as a North Shore resident, we firmly believe it's Blues country. So it's a massive game, and I think that hype, it's sort of got the feel of a Battle of the Bridge a little bit. And I'd say if Moana Pasifika looked at the last time they played at Eden Park, they probably wanted it too much, and somehow they've got to control that emotion, because we know how good they can be, and we certainly know that they can match the Blues physically and get a result. So the critical thing for them is to balance that emotion with that accuracy and not giving away penalties and not forcing passes that lead to turnovers that really let the Blues into the game. And I think the game at Eden Park was one of the Blues' best this season. They really executed coming out of their end, but when they got into the 22, we saw a lot more scoops and a lot more movement of the ball, not just going for the pick and go, because exactly as you said, that's going to play right into Moana Pasifika's hands. Although they haven't won probably as pretty as they'd like, and yes, there's still 7 turnovers from 16 entries on the weekend, but their leaders are stepping up. Rico as well, stepping up when it matters defensively, on loose ball, hard ball gets, on the effort areas in terms of the kick chase, not necessarily the fancy stuff, but the stuff that matters and the stuff that gets results like they got in Fiji.
We'll be joined in a moment by one of their younger players, Cam Christie, a North Harbour man, who's made a pretty big impact in the 6 games this year. But Brynna, before we go through to Cam, what do you think has worked for the Blues in the last few weeks? And when you look at how MP plays, do you see that playing out the way it did in the previous encounter a month ago?
They've evolved their game, but they also have been able to go back to their DNA. Like you look on the weekend, very difficult conditions in Fiji, a bit of a wet ball, and I guess they went straight through them. They dominated possession. I think in the first half they were in their 22 for 7 minutes, and Jips touched on the efficiency of being able to be in that 22, but they just took the gas out of the Fijian draw. So they still have that ability to be able to go through teams. They've got the pick and go, they'll be able to go through the heart. They've actually showed a lot of ability to be able to get the tip balls, the minus balls, and been able to, I guess, show a little bit of variety about in their tip play, which I think is great. It's really hard to defend if you think that someone's going to go straight through you, but you've got that interplay and been able to, I guess, get through seams. So I've seen some involvement in that attack around that, going through teams. But I think as well, Beauden Barrett has been massive for them. We can't underestimate his involvement in how he's been able to control the game. We've touched on the kicking game at times with him and been able to make the right decisions, whether it's long or contestable. Funaki has been really good in and around the last couple of weeks with his kicking game and his control around that game management area, which Drips touched on. Also, their attack has been good as well, to be able to get the ball to the whip through ball in hand or through kicking. Been able to do attacking kicks through crossfield kicks through sword, Beauden Barrett. We're able to be able to get that in, been able to get that to that area of the field through the edge, or been able to do a little attacking kicks as well. So they've shown a lot of variety throughout the air, which I think probably has been an improvement within them.
And I think although it's a forced change, I think a big part of that is Cole Forbes and his ability that he's played fullback, he's on the right wing, and I think there's a lot of trust that if it goes wrong, they can kick from the edge, and we've been speaking about that for the other teams. 71% of the exits against the Fijian draw were run exits, which it was the complete opposite. So what I'm trying to say is that they know they're having to change because they've become a little bit predictable. And that was just a massive step. You'd think, go to Fiji, hot conditions, a little bit of a wet ball. It would just be easy to sit in the pocket and kick it. But they're definitely showing that they're going to be in a setup that they can kick or run, but if you give the run pitches and your back threes dropping early, they will get it to the edge. And I do think Cole Forbes has given them a lot of that confidence, one through his voice, but also his ability to kick down that right edge. And it's really worked for them in the sense that the assumption of them just kicking to get out of their half, you've got to be on. You've got to be on. You've got to be on the job because they will run it if you back off too early.
Yeah, so joining us now, Blues lock flanker Cam Christie, also a North Harbour man.
He's the next king of the shore.
How are there three of you on the show right now? Christ.
It's a big week for the North Shore, mate.
Yeah, which is why we got Cam up as a North Shore man going over to play MP at one of the Blues' supposed home grounds, mate. This must be a big thing for you to protect home turf.
It's considered an away game, right, for us. But, know that stadium pretty well. And, the dog pound, we call it. So it'll be weird being in the other changing room, I reckon.
At the dog pound? What's going on there?
It's a Harbour thing. It's been around for a while. Yeah. It's the old dog's life, and it's the dog pound. You come to the pound.
You come to the pound.
You get taught a few lessons. There's no doubt about it. The battle for the North Shore is on this week. We need more Blues flags at this game.
Mate, you're just up the road. Are you seeing MP flags flying out the windows?
When you're at the ground, but I wouldn't say there's a lot. There's still a lot of the Blues wave being ridden in terms of the flags on masts at houses. So they haven't jumped ship just yet, and a big result on the weekend will help that.
You look at the Fiji and Te result. Look, I think it was a great way that your forwards, I thought, really just dominated the collision area. And no doubt the Moana and Pacifica are pretty similar in terms of that physicality-wise. But just for me, I think I've seen a little bit of an evolution in terms of how you guys have played. Look, last year, I know you weren't a part of the squad, but you would have watched from afar the physicality around the breakdown, the pick and goes, and been able to go through teams. But has it been kind of a slight evolvement and change within the group in terms of the attacking style? You guys have been able to show a little bit of flair and using your backs, and Bowden Barrett being back, but has there kind of been an evolution, I guess, in the last month of your guys' footy with that in mind as well?
Yeah, I think so. In saying that, though, we've really just been knuckling down on I guess, our bread and butter, which is going through teams. But yeah, I guess the cohesion in the team has started to tighten up, and we're getting some momentum at the back end of the season. So I think, just having that vary in our attack style and switching it up, but not going too far away from what we know, which is trying to go through teams.
And when you take on a team like Moana with loose forwards like they have, is there any way that you change that collision area? Is there a different kind of approach for a team who are so obviously keen to be in that area too?
Just not giving them momentum. They obviously got really good jacklers and get a lot of turnovers in that breakdown. So the importance of our accuracy, I guess, in the breakdown and just making sure, we're nailing our stuff, keeping possession and just allowing ourselves to really attack.
I just want to also talk about your journey as well. Like, what have you found the biggest difference from NPC or even New Zealand 20 days that you've kind of had to adjust your game to?
Yeah, probably the collisions day. I reckon waking up on the Sunday, couldn't really turn my head, pretty sore, and I was like, oh yeah, this is it. I guess the collisions as you're playing bigger men, stronger, bigger athletes. But that's what you want as well. You want to wake up sore the next day. And then as long as that, as well as the speed, the speed of the ball. And, if you're out of position or you're out of place in the defensive system, you get shown out pretty quick. So it's, I guess the speed and having to adapt to that in terms of focus and staying on.
Of course, you've got Harbour coming up. You guys are going to be missing Bryn Hall maybe this year. Is there a campaign amongst the players to get him up to 100 caps at all? People putting together a petition to get him to that point?
Yeah, no, I reckon he'll be back. Yeah. I reckon he'll be back. Hopeful.
Surely just get him on the bench for 79, 30 seconds. Yeah. It's just that insurance bill might just be a little bit too much.
Are you still eating 1 kg of rice every single day?
Nah, actually, got the odd skinnies done at the beginning of the season and they weren't too shiny. So down on the carbs and more of a lean protein focused Brenner. So,
Can I just say, Cam, that is a masterclass in deflection. Bryn just did not want to answer that. He just spun it around perfectly. So you can still learn off the old dog. He's got a few tricks up his sleeve.
Thanks very much, Cam. Thanks for your time. All the best to the team for the weekend. See who becomes the king of Auckland.
Awesome. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Now, the big talking point this week internationally has been that Lions squad that was named at the end of last week. Quite a phenomenal squad. I know Stephen Donald thought the Wallabies will win that series. I saw that squad and I thought, yeah, that'll be an achievement to beat that team. Henry Pollock, his name coming up as a guy with only a small amount of test footy, that one test against Wales. He scored a try. He's obviously been one of the best players in Europe. He's a finalist for Player of the Year in Europe. 20-year-old open side flanker up against Van der Fleer and Tom Curry. So it's not going to be easy to get the starting spot, is it? But, he's there. And it made us think about who are the best talented, the best young rising talents within world rugby. He's obviously one of them, Chip. Who else do you see?
Yeah, well, look, obviously I think Wallace Satiti, he's obviously had last season, but he's still pretty new into the international fold, and I think his game can only get better and better. I know people will go, this guy's already known, but in the rugby sense, he hasn't played a hell of a lot, and I think his impact on the international game is by far yet to come, and of the Israel Folau mould and Joseph Suaalii. So in terms of our corner of the globe, those two players, I think, are going to have electric years and be defining on how successful their teams are.
So Satiti and Suaalii for you.
Yeah, well, I've watched a lot of the highlights of this young man, and I tell you what, him coming off the bench with his pace and his way, he is like a little bit of a Curry in terms of in and around the breakdown, but man, he's like Michael Hooper in the width, like the pace and his ability to find the try line is just absolutely outrageous.
Yeah, sensational player. Brenna, who are you seeing?
Sasha Feinberg Mngazulu, the way that he plays, I think he is all the skill set to be a world-class first five. I love the way that he plays. Obviously got injured last year, but I think, the way that his skill set is and the way that he does play, I definitely think he is one that has the potential to be one of the best players in the world. And I also think that the Frenchman, the winger, Louis Bielbieri, I think he is fantastic. He is electric. I know they've got great counter-attack ability in the French rugby at the moment, but I loved watching him play, and he's so young. I think he's 2021, and I think the way that he was able to play in the Six Nations, he was electric, so really enjoyed seeing him play. But, the guys that Jipper touched on, definitely two people, but yeah, I think those two have a big future, I think, in international rugby as well.
When I was Googling through all of these guys, there was a highlight from Feinberg and Ngomazulu where he's playing for the Stormers against the Lions, and he's basically juggling the ball football style at full tilt, trying to regather it and then claim it and go over the line. And I was just like, this guy is off the charts talented. So I'm sure that we're going to see lots of him in the box jersey.
He's also done that no-look crossfield attacking kick, like he's got that sort of Spencer feel about him in terms of you just don't know what you're going to get. And I'd probably bet against that he doesn't know what he's going to do, and that's what makes him so great, is because he literally does read the pitches right in front of him and makes the decision as late as possible.
The other thing about this Lions tour is how many Australian players do you think could make the Lions 23? When you look at the 23 that could come out of that team, it's phenomenal. Obviously, all of those Irish players who have been in a team that's been so dominant for so long outside of World Cups. And then the Scottish players who are coming through. There are some incredible players, some good Englishmen in there. I'm just not sure there's that many Aussies who would make that 23.
Yeah, look, it's a formidable squad. If the Wallabies are to get up, I would say we may not have the Bledisloe. That is a very, very good squad. And if you look at it, look, Jamison Gibson Park obviously is a dead set, but potentially I love Jake Gordon. I think you watch his impact when he comes back for the Waratahs. He's a match winner. He's the sort of guy that can turn a game. And so in terms of the 23, I think he could potentially fit in there. I think Valentini, although it's very hard with that loose forward trio, you've got to acknowledge that him at international level is physical enough and dominant enough to potentially be in the 23. I've really jumped on the Darcy Swain bandwagon. I don't even know if he's going to make the Wallabies, but what he does defensively at line-out time for the Force, and I suppose his skill set for a big man is definitely worth considering. And obviously I can't pump up Suaalii like I did just previously and leave him out. But I think his skill set, I would definitely have him in 23 if we were to mix it up. But for the most part, it's, there's some tough, contentious calls. Maybe McWright's there, maybe a Tizzano, Bryn's boy Tizzano. I'm starting to jump on that bandwagon as well there, Brynner. He is really playing well. And I think a Lena Kitao as well, potentially. In the midfield, probably it's a push, but I think he's having his best Super Rugby season this year.
So you think it was that 6 or 7 guys that you reckon could be there or thereabouts?
Yeah, but realistically, probably 4 or 5.
Yeah. Brenna, is there anyone that you're seeing who you think could walk into that 23?
There's not many. I think there's maybe 1 or 2, genuinely. That's what I feel. I think, Angus Bell, possibly. I think he's one guy that I think would have the capability to be able to walk into that 23 with the way that he plays. And I think Swali as well. I think that what he can bring, whether that's at fullback, at centre, on the wing, I think in that environment, he'd be one that I think could possibly be in that team. And then you're obviously talking around the names that Jip has brought up, there could be possibilities, but I just think that British and Irish Lions team there's so much depth and quality. So I genuinely only think maybe 2 people that I think I'd genuinely put in that position to be able to be in that 23.
I just don't see how the Aussies win this series, like against a team like that. Home advantage and a good, well-drilled team would be competitive and might get a test match. But looking at it, it's at least 2-1 to
And it's probably the one position which gives you the concern. Like, they have got talent, definitely, and when we've seen that in Super Rugby, but I just don't know who their 10 is. With Noah Lolesio going down, you're more confident seeing the game he had the week prior, but Ben Donaldson, Liner, there's options, but I don't know if anyone grabs it. Like,
they're not Finn Russell.
Yeah, and when the All Blacks won in 05, like, it was the Carter show. And I don't know where they're going to get that from, unless it's through some freakish play from a Suaalii. I mean, in a weird way, you would back Quade Cooper to come and just pull a rabbit out of the hat, and for every report I read, Bryn Bernard's in some fairly good form as well.
Having one of them at least in that squad, look, game situationally wise, I've been with Bernard for the year. The guy is a genius in terms of what game management looks like situationally. He's been there, he's played a lot of minutes, played a lot of games. It's a big part in terms of why we've been successful here. So look, it's not a dumb thing to think about. And probably, Joe Smith's pretty smart, and whether he wants to be able to have that experience to come back for these young guys like Donaldson, Liner, obviously Tade, Edmund was there as well. If Lolesio is injured, that's not a bad option to bring in that experience to play or help these young guys and what it looks like to, I guess, play test match footy.
Good luck, Australia. Good luck. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks. Now, there was a really interesting under-20s game that happened on Monday morning, New Zealand time. Terrible start from New Zealand versus South Africa in the Rugby Championship final. 19-0 down after 12 minutes. It looked like they were just going to smash right over the top of them. They ended up winning 48-45. New Zealand came back big time, almost blew it at the end with a bomb into their own in goal.
And a few cards. Don't forget the cards.
And a couple of contentious cards. One of them was a red card when the bloke's knee was already on the ground. It was bizarre.
No mitigating circumstances. He's falling. Like he's fallen.
He's fallen already. Bizarre. But all the same, some incredible talent coming through in that game, especially when you look out wide for New Zealand. The attack was outrageous. Some of the handling skills under defensive pressure, and I just loved. So there was a big group of forwards, in that sort of pod area. Sometimes there's 4, sometimes there's 5, and they're all running different lines. But then that swing movement of the backs to enter behind that pod there was just so much going on. But the execution, the ability to find space and pop offload. It was some of the best attacking structures I've seen in a long time, like to the point that you'd almost look at it yourself. If the super coaches out there, I'd have a look at it. Like, it was really, really challenging to defend with that many bodies in motion. But then the skill set, the square hips of the forwards that had the ball to pop it out the back, the running lines, and then I suppose the hidden running lines of the backs coming in behind. The phase play attack was simply magnificent. Yeah, and the finishing out wide, Brynner, Sanua got a hat-trick, and then also Kunawave looked superb. He's a sevens player, been within the Crusaders environment as well. There's some real sharp guys out there.
The defence as well, like, I know you look at their scoreboard and you're thinking, there must have been a lot of missed tackles. And look, sometimes there was, but it was just with how well the attack was for the Baby Blacks was outstanding, even for the South Africans as well. Even though their first 3 trials was a little bit different, they went through the front door, and the cleans were brutal in terms of that first 15 minutes from the South Africans. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like, it was such a great game, and the biggest thing that I enjoyed with that back end of the game was that, down to 13 men, a red card that shouldn't have been a red card, a yellow card down to 30 men is the way they closed out that game for 2 minutes. Like, I was thinking when they were doing that, I was like, that's going to be really tough to be able to go 2 minutes or whatever the time period was to kill their game. But they were able to find a way. And, you have to think when they go to their rugby championship, they're going to be in situations where they need to close out a game, and they were able to do it. So, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a great spectacle, and really stoked that the boys were able to get up 48-45 as well in South Africa. Really tough conditions as well.
And I agree with Bryn. You sort of watch it and you're like, well, they haven't done that poorly defensively. Like, it's not like they miss 100 tackles. They just couldn't win the collision when the ball's that quick. So if they, a little bit of a focus in and around that breakdown and being able to slow that ball down whilst not getting offside with the referees will be critical, so that they're not put in that position where they're literally hanging on with 13 players and then, the old up and under that nearly didn't go out. It must have been stressful being coach. But they were certainly well drilled and clearly backed the game plan, because the way they executed it was just superb.
The execution wasn't particularly good for the Black Ferns in their opening test match against the Wallabies. Obviously, there's a Rugby World Cup coming up later on. They're in the middle of the Pac 4. New Zealand plays Canada and the USA over the next 2 weeks. 38-12 win over the Wallaroos, Jip, but rusty.
Yeah, I think they'll be frustrated because they had a lot of opportunities, but the line-out did struggle. It just didn't allow them to get their game going. And I think it showed when they just focused on trying to go through with big, strong carries, or even as we saw a little bit of a release of the ball and kept going by Letienga that led to the first try. There's enough there to know they're only going to get better with more time. But yes, I think they would agree that it took them a little bit longer than they probably expected to get into the rhythm. But, you started to see glimpses of what we can expect in passages of that second half.
What did you like and what didn't you like, Bryn?
The kicking game in the first part of the exit area, I did enjoy seeing. And look, I think it's just it's an involvement where it's an evolution where I think we've touched on a lot with the Black Ferns have been able to do more. And I just think against England and I guess against where they're going to be in that World Cup, they've got to be able to show a area of kicking game. And so, obviously Demont early doors off an exit, they were able to try and kick long, and they were at least trying to be able to exit from their zone. So I guess I did enjoy seeing that, to be able to try and see for the future in terms of what's coming ahead. They've got to be able to do a kicking game long. So I saw that. And then obviously they've got the attacking kicking games from Brunt. They've shown that probably in the last 12 to 24 months that they're not afraid to put their ball in behind through attacking kicks. So I enjoyed at least seeing that for a little bit in that game. And then I think also the physicality, when they did get it right, you look at Soros and McGee's 39th minute try, it was 15 phases. So, if they could hold on to their ball and been able to, I guess, have the execution inside the 22 metre zone, they had 17 visits into the 22. So they want to be able to be better in efficiency-wise when they do have ball on hand. But I guess more so for me was seeing their kicking implemented from the exit zone, which I think they're going to need at a Rugby World Cup to be able to at least, when they do score points, they need to, I guess, exit out of their zone, not just running. They showed a little bit of kicking from Demont, and they can do that with Maya Joseph as well, with the attacking kicks and Brunt as well.
But man, you want Vahakolo touching the ball more. She's just not getting as much ball as we saw in the previous year, and hasn't been able to sort of show what she's capable of. I think the more, and obviously Sorensen McGee, every time she got into space, we saw again what she's capable of. So I think having a big focus on, one, securing the ball at set piece, but then how they're going to manipulate or tighten the defence to allow space and time for those players will be massive.
They've only got a few test matches. There's these ones and the test against England before you get to the Rugby World Cup, and obviously your pool phases there where you could trial some stuff. But if we look at this game against Canada, are we making changes? Are we bringing in Portia Woodman maybe for a crack on the left if she's more busy than Vahakolo? Or
I think we'll see changes because they've got a squad to pick. They've got to sharpen the pencil on a few names. So I think we'll see probably not drastic changes, but I think we can expect the 23 to look considerably different. They need to know.
Yeah.
They've got to give players time.
Yeah.
Is it? Georgia Miller might not have been in long enough, but, she'll need a game at some point to sort of show what she's capable of as well. So there's there has to be opportunity created, and the only way you can do this is giving them the time under the blowtorch, which is the bright lights.
To be able to see them, put them under the blowtorch that Jip touched on, you've got to see them play. So for me, yep, these results are important. And every time you put a black jersey on, you want to be able to win. But the bigger picture is winning the Rugby World Cup. So yeah, there should be some changes. You've got to see if they're going to be in the squad or they're doing the job that you want them to do.
So we're continuing our partnership with All Blacks trainer Dr. Nick Gill and his Rugby Ready team. Each week we'll give away a free 4-week training program membership or 1 free training ebook collection. To win for yourself, a family member or a friend, follow @RugbyReady on Instagram, then direct message ARP, as well as this week's unique entry word, fitness, and why you're a good choice to be the winner. A huge congratulations to this week's winner of the Rugby Ready giveaway, Tom Scrace. You've scored the Rugby Ready Ultimate Conditioning Bundle. The reason he wins is a cracker. He's a 41-year-old looking to play his first season of rugby, to learn the strongest and safest way to play so he can inspire and pass on knowledge to his daughter playing her second season for Johnsonville RFC. I presume that's in Wellington. Thanks again to everyone who entered. We loved reading your stories. Keep those submissions coming. It could be your name announced next week when we give away 4 weeks of free access to the Rugby Ready Form membership. Remember, even if you don't win, you win, because we'll provide a special ARP link for 75% off your first 4 weeks of the Perform membership, or a discount on the ebook training collection. You'll see it at the bottom of the screen there. So good luck to you all, and congratulations to the last 2 weeks' winners. Speaking of, I suppose, up-and-coming talent, we've got some good questions that have come through from the readers, and please send us an email, aotearoarugbypod@sky.co.nz. This one's been sitting in the archive for a little bit, but we've got there from Zane Talake, who sent us an email saying, I've got 2 boys who are rugby obsessed and dream of playing for the All Blacks. Do you have any advice at the early stages for working towards a career as a professional player, Chip?
I think you've got to have fun. Like, to be honest, you've got to enjoy it, because once you get in that professional mode, you really do need to love what you do, and you've got to love the grind that comes with it. So I think first and foremost, it needs to be because it is your passion. It sort of fuels you, and you are a little bit of a rugby nerd, because you need to be obsessed with it to be the very best at it, I believe. And then the other one for me is fitness and diet. The better you can be off the field, the more chance you have to sort of show your wares. And I think this is why, this partnership with Nick Gill started is purely because sometimes you get this education late, and you're trying to unpick bad habits that are a lot harder to do at a later age. And I think if the earlier you can get some understanding around that, the better you set yourself up to sort of be in the best shape at each stage of your career. But for me, first and foremost, at a young age, maybe don't look at it as a job, just look at it as something that you love and you're passionate about and you really enjoy.
One thing that Dad always instilled into me was, being trying to be the fittest in the team. Because, coaches love to see that. It shows that you've got a form of work ethic, you've got some discipline, because you've got yourself into really good condition. So the diet is a big part of that. But I think if you've got that mindset to be able to have a great work ethic and being able to be fit, it gets your eyes on you really early, and being able to, see coaches really see that you've got some good habits instilled into you. So those would be a couple of things for me, but I think being patient and just enjoying the process of being a kid and then playing with your friends and being able to have that enjoyment, because it does get the blowtorch reviews that a little bit for this podcast, but it gets put on you pretty quickly. You don't lose that enjoyment, but you get, I guess, it's tougher to be a professional rugby player that is when you are younger.
And from a skills point of view, as far as developing your skills over time when you're a kid coming through the ranks, any tips on, when to approach it, how often to do it?
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, you've got to be coachable to improve your skills. Sometimes if you're closed-minded and think you know it all, it can become a bit of a challenge to improve. So I think keeping that open mind and, really looking at things outside. Like one thing I would have loved from a skills point of view is understood meditation and visualization from a young age, because it does, sometimes it's the physical strain isn't as powerful as, I suppose, what you can create in your mind, and you can create those belief systems of achieving things that others may see that you can't. So I think any sort of aspect of being able to control your mind will put you in a massive advantage in terms of improving skills, but also just dealing with the pressures of professional sport.
There was a big moment in my life when I think I was 16 and made the New Zealand under-17s, and Wayne Smith gave a passing drill just to be able to work on for halfbacks, and it was more so like the follow-through and being able to point towards your target, which I still use to this day, which is, I guess, a staple and I guess my technique. But getting advice from people that you really respect and I guess have an understanding of what it takes to be a professional rugby player and using that as a bit of a sponge and having the coachability and understanding that you can use that, it was really been a bit beneficial for me because I still use that to this day. So those kind of drills that I got given, set me up for where I am today, which is great.
I think as well, like seeking the feedback as well, like sometimes people avoid it because they don't, probably don't want to highlight their flaws. But I think the more you sort of put yourself out there and seek feedback for parts of your game that have flaws, people are only going to be attracted to that and see you in a much better light. So sometimes taking that first step into, wanting to improve and putting it out there to coaches and selectors is actually more beneficial to you than you would probably believe.
Yeah, let's get into the competition, the tipping competition. Matty 3337 has stepped ahead. It's been close at the top, but he's gone ahead by 2 points. So he could be the man that we have on the show in a few weeks because it's going to be hard to get those points back in 3 weeks.
I tell you what, I can't trust those points anymore.
Why is that?
I picked 3 out of 4 and they only gave me 2. I've sent an email.
Yeah.
I said, guys, we're taking a very serious tipping comp.
Yeah.
And I want my 3 points. I do not want to be dropped down to 81 when I was about 50-something.
Yeah, they've sent you back an automatic reply.
Yeah, automatic reply. So please, get back to me. Get back to me. I want my point. I want my point.
Jipper wants to move up.
Yeah.
Give him his chance.
Not competitive at all.
Yeah, so I only got 1 on the weekend. I had an absolute shocker. I tried some things.
Coming for you. I'm 1 point behind you.
1 point behind. I picked the drawer thinking, this is my chance to make a move. I'm way off. Let's just have a crack. And that was very, very wrong. Very wrong. And then the Crusaders obviously did me wrong, Britta.
Should have stuck with your heart, mate.
You are in my vision right now. Jipper, I think it's too hard to reach you. But Ross, I'm coming for you, mate. I'm coming for you.
Here he comes. Rightio. So, guys, who have we got? Let's start off with the Canes against the Landers.
Hurricanes.
Hurricanes?
Yep.
That's simple. Hurricanes at home for you too, Brennan?
Yep, it's that simple. There's a lot on the line for them quarterfinals wise. So, yep, it'll be the Hurricanes.
A lot on line for the Crusaders too. They're heading over to Sydney. Straight forward, easy win against the Tars.
Not a happy hunting ground.
Doesn't like it.
No, mates. I hope they're not staying at Coogee. If they're just staying at Coogee, it's a 50-50. So I'm gonna have to do a bit of a wait on where they're staying, Ross. And I'll get back to you on that one.
The amount of times he's mentioned Coogee, he's had some good times in Coogee.
Look at the success rate, mate. I'd love to know the percentage. Maybe we can do some research from 2017 to where we are now. The success rate of winning in Sydney, I think it'd be under 50%.
All right.
And how big an impact is Will Jordan? Who do you think will fill that 15 role?
I think Shea Fihaki will. I think Shea Fihaki will move to fullback. He's played a lot of footy there in UPC, played a little bit there last year with Will being injured for the majority of last year. So I think Shea will go to fullback and you've got Macca Springer that can jump in on their left wings.
Good replacement.
But sorry, to come back to who I'm going to pick, Ross, it'll be the Crusaders, but by 3 points.
Unless they have a good time in Coogee. Drew, you're going Crusaders?
I'll go Crusaders. Suolese, I would assume, will be out after what happened to him on the weekend, and I think he's just too big a loss.
Yeah, he's
Jake Gordon's a big factor, though. Like, he has a knack against the Crusaders of getting a few intercepts, but no, I'll back the Crusaders.
Okay, Drew versus Force.
Man, the Force made over 300 tackles. I've never seen that in a professional game before. They made the Brumbies work, but I just think kick-off time, Drew are so unpredictable. I'm just going to go for them at home. It's during the day. Expect the heat to have its impact. And how do you back up after 311 tackles out of 328 attempts? Like, they tackled at 95% against the Brumbies. It was like outrageous how they kept them out for as long as they did, but they ran out of steam in the end. But yeah, I think that'll have a massive impact because they don't have a lot of squad members available. So the draw for me.
Sure, Bryn.
Yeah, that'll be the draw. Yeah, I think if this is in Perth, then you're picking the Force. But I think the Force are going to have to win this game. They're going to have to be able to find a way somehow to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive. But yeah, I think the draw at that time of the day. Yep, I've said it time and time again. I've thought around going off them, but look, in Fiji, I'm picking them.
Okay, Moana Pacifica at home at North Harbour Stadium against the Blues, Brenner.
My head tells me the Blues. I think the Blues, considering how they played them last time, where they are and how their game is going, I just predict the Blues will just be a bit too much. But this is going to be a tight game. And Ross, I've got to catch you somehow, and I need to show some balls. So I'll be picking the Force. Sorry, I'll be picking Moana.
Moana. Okay. Okay, I'll go Blues then.
Yep.
Let's see what happens. I'm tempted to go MP.
Yeah, I've got to find out somewhere. There's no thinking behind it. There's no thinking behind it whatsoever. I've got to make a play. We're going Moana, but
You're not rolling that dice, eh?
No, I'll stick with the Blues. Stick with the Blues. We need to paint the North Shore blue. For my sanity.
You'll be driving past that stadium every morning going, sure. Okay, right. Brumbies versus the Reds at home. Brumbies.
I don't know how to read these sides at the moment, to be honest, but I'll go Brumbies because they're at home.
Yeah.
Like Brumbies, I just spoke about the Force, like 70% possession, nearly 70% territory, and it was 14-7 at the 65-minute mark.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of the skill set and X factor the Brumbies have, I think they'll be disappointed with that result against the Force, but bounce back at home.
Yeah, and they need to stay in the running, so there's a lot of motivation there. And saying that the Reds want to make their way up into a home semi-final.
Yeah, look, again, the Reds, it's a good comp. It's really hard to pick at the moment.
Yeah, plenty going on. In the run for first place and the run for sixth place, Brumbies versus Reds, Brenner.
yeah, I'll go for the Brumbies. Look, yeah, I think Jeff's touched on the points around the multiple tackles that the Force had to made, the amount of position, territory that they had. So they'll be pretty disappointed with the way they did play. But I think, look, knowing that first position is up for grabs, and probably in the past where they haven't been able to get home semi-finals or, a home fight, they haven't even made a final, but do you know what I mean? Being able to have the position to be finishing top two, and even first, I think it'd be a really big motivating factor for their group, and knowing that they have the opportunity to do that. So I'll pick the Brumbies against the Reds.
Okay, and thank you very much all for joining us once again on the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Watch a wonderful weekend of rugby coming up soon. Thank you to Ashley and Martin Medical Hair Centres for sponsoring the show. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes who makes it happen. Thank you for watching it, and we will catch you next week on the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. Mā te wā.